Hey, what is up? Long time no see. This is the Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario. OakRidgeFord.com. I'm Norm, along with Mike. Happy New Year. It is January 2nd, 2022. And we have hockey to talk about. After an 18-day layoff for those Maple Brothers, back in action against the Ottawa Senators and completely obliterating the Capital Gang. 6-0 on 40 shots. I think 1 for 6 on the power play. William Nylander with a pair of goals. Yeah.
McCabe with a pair of goals too.
Yeah, McCabe with a pair of goals too. Not a bad little return for the Maple Leafs. At the end of the day, whether they won, lost, or drew, it was a situation where, as fans and I'm sure as players, just getting back on the ice was a win in and of itself.
Yeah, good morning, Norm. It was a sloppy game. I know that Sheldon Keefe was very pleased with the effort and pleased with the result, but after being off for almost 3 weeks, and obviously a ton of players, I think it was up to 15 that contracted the Omicron variant and back, and Jake Muzzin was the only one, and Timothy Liljegren, who's still positive, were the only ones who weren't in the lineup. There was some rust there, especially early on the power play. The power play had a couple chances in the first 5 minutes and really didn't have a great opportunity. At least I didn't think great scoring chance generated. So, but right now, the Leafs are a better team than Ottawa, but last year was proof that, Ottawa can step it up against a team like Toronto and make it tough for them. They didn't last night, really, with their lineup being shorthanded and with the Leafs, getting 2 shorthanded goals in the span of 27 seconds. That pretty much, knocked the wind out of the Senators, and then it just got worse from there.
Danny Grinnick, Chris Daniels, Birdwatching Life, all in the chat. This is the Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, OakRidgeFord.com. 2022 Fords are coming in fast and furious, especially F-150. If you're looking for a new vehicle to start off the new year, all you need to do is get at me. I'll make sure you get the Leafs Convo discount. Despite the fragmented process that's taking place here, the Leafs have business to tend to, and that's continue to pick up points, continue to progress. Are you expecting more of a patchwork as 2022 carries on and the league deals on a daily basis with Omicron and it hitting in spots and maybe be alleviated in other spots?
Well, I know that I had heard somebody say, well, the Leafs are going to be over this because 15 players caught it. And that means that they'll be, they'll have antibody. I'm not an epidemiologist or a doctor. It's like, but from what is being talked about right now, this doesn't mean that 3 months down the line that players are going to get positive again, because so we don't know what the landscape is going to be right now. Unfortunately, it's extremely transmissible. We see the numbers in Canada, especially in Ontario. I get an email every day from, I think, Global News that tells you how many positive cases in Ontario, and it was 400, 500, and now it's 10,000. So it's it's blowing up, and so I don't know what the landscape. What this is going to tell you is that this isn't going to be the last time you see Alex Biega or some of the depth players on the Marlies. They're going to probably spot in because other players are going to get positive. If you look at what Montreal's gone through, if you look at what Tampa Bay, with them losing Vasilevsky to COVID and having to play, Maxime Lagacé and a 20-year-old Hugo Alvenfelt in goal. that's the reality of what's going on here. You have to play players that normally you wouldn't have to play. So it's, that's the reason why the NHL formed the taxi squads. And that's why the NHL finally came to the right decision and bailed out of the Olympics. And now, the Leafs have 8 games to make up in terms of postponed games. And you're going to see their schedule probably change a little bit even more with the fan limitations in Canada. Norm. You had 1,000 people maximum in that building, and that included Carlton the Bear and a few fans. But it's like, the NHL needs to make money, and they need to make money with games with full stands in Canada. So what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot of games, and as you've seen over the last week or so, postponed and moved to later in the season, and probably the schedule rejigged. And that's just the reality. They have to do it, and the Leafs have 8 games to make up right now, and it'll probably be more. But they're not going to extend the season into the summer. They're not going to be playing into August. They're going to get these games done, and that probably means rosters expanded throughout the rest of the season.
Well, it will be a bit of a speed wobble right now with the aim to be on point when you're making up this glut of games towards the end of the season. You don't want to be inundated at a point where you're trying to reset for a playoff run. So just like last year was uncharted territory with the North Division, and you had all of the American teams playing just below the border. It was something brand new. This is also new in that, the stops and the starts, and it seems as if, as opposed to it being relegated in last year and the year before that, the entire league is dealing with it. Again, I'd rather be playing hockey than completely shutting it down. And we got the Olympic situation out of the picture now, so the focus can be on getting this done safely, keeping the players as healthy as possible, and getting back on track. Then again, though, Mike, as you've already pointed out, 3 months from now could be worse. It may be better. We may get back to some normalcy, but we may not. And that's the $1 million question. But I'd rather try to answer that question than not at all. Akinzeki's in the chat. We have Steve Sakrub here, Wilfred Witzke, Alan Kwiatkowski, and Trevor Hickey. Good to see you, everybody. We're going to go through our top 5 Leaf surprises for the season that has been in the next couple of minutes. Want to talk a little bit more about last night's game. So Nylander with 2, Mikheyev with 2. Justin Hall scores his first of the season. Talk about somebody who wants to get back in everybody's good books, especially the coaching staffs. And who knows, maybe he finds his game here. Nothing from Matthews, nothing from Marner in his return, and that was very quiet, understated return, and I don't think many people were expecting anything from him. But those 2 guys are the major players in essence. So any concern that they didn't come back with a bang?
No, I mean, I think that especially with Marner and Sandin played really well, and he hadn't played in a month. Marner hadn't played hockey at that speed and level for the entire month of December. So It's understandable that there was a little bit of rust there. I'll just say that on your previous point, the main motivation for playing that game last night was to sort of get it out of the way, because, okay, if you postpone that game or you postpone the game against Edmonton on Wednesday, you're going to have to make those up. They obviously they want to play these games in front of fans, but also you've been off for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And you're gonna need to bank these points, but you're also going to need to play these games, because you're going to have like 5 games in 7 nights if you keep postponing games. So eventually, what you're going to have here is the entire month of January, or most of the month of January, the Leafs are going to be playing on the road. I looked at their schedule yesterday, and they have a game within the 3-week window, because apparently Ontario said they'll look at fan capacity in 3 weeks. They have a game on the 17th against the New Jersey Devils. They have a 5-game road trip, actually a 4-game road trip, because the Montreal game was canceled. So they won't be back until the middle of January. That's very possible that they postpone that game to move it to that 3-week period that was reserved for the Olympics, and they move things around. It's very, very possible. So, or they do what the Bruins and the Habs did. They had a game on January 12th. It was scheduled to play at the Bell Center. What they're doing now is playing that game at TD Garden, and they'll play a later game at the Bell Center. And they maybe the Leafs will play in Newark for that Devils game, and that'll make their 4-game road trip a 6-game road trip. So everything is right now is influx, and the team that deals with that the best is going to come out of this. And thankfully, the Leafs right now are healthy for the first time, and they're deep and they're playing well. So that combination is very good for the team and very good for their future.
Well, there's the competition, there's the logistics, and then there's the economic impact, right? These are the three factors that the league is taking into consideration. And, the teams are either at the mercy of or have some say in, right? Making up these games, one, to give everybody a chance to have equally as much of a competitive advantage as they can get, depending on whether they're good enough, but also money lost, right? There's just, over the last 2 years, millions, if not billions of dollars have been lost. And, while there are people out there who think this whole thing is a sham, if it really were, don't you think there would be more pushback against it, like legitimate, heavy, serious pushback? I think, this is a tough time for these businesses, especially, with the ambition of flourishing. Right now, it's just about trying to survive. But if they're given the chance to recoup a lot of that money lost, they're going to take it, and it will come. It will come in a lot of ways before just the intent to make sure that the schedule is placed properly, whether for the players, or just for scheduling. At the end of the day, money talks, and there's been a lot of money lost. So this money has to be regained at some point. And as you pointed out, Mike, they have that 3-week window in which to pack in games that have been postponed. And who knows, maybe they start doubling up, tripling up on certain nights towards the end of the schedule.
Well, I think what's going to end up happening, because the one thing that was made perfectly clear after they bowed out of the Olympics is that it may not be feasible because of building availability that they fit all these games that they postponed into that three-week window. What they may have to do is they may have to, move games that they can move into there and then move other games around. You could have a revamped schedule where, like the game right before Christmas, that they were supposed to play against St. Louis, that game might be played February, but a game that was supposed to be played in March might be moved there, and then they move something else. It could be just a complete reshuffle. But that's the reality right now that's going on in the American Hockey League. It's going on in the OHL and the Q and the Dub. It's going on everywhere. And but the alternative is canceling things like the World Juniors did, and nobody wants to do that. The players don't want to do that. The owners don't want to do that. The teams don't want to do that because, like, for example, they want to make as much money as possible, and it's not because they're greedy. It's because, well, for example, the Leafs, the cap will go up, I believe, in scheduled after the next 2 seasons. That's when Austin Matthews and William Nylander's contracts are up.
But this is a business. It's not a charity case, Mike.
I know.
This is serious stuff. I don't blame them for wanting to recoup or generate as much money as they possibly can. In most circumstances, if you want to gouge, go for it. That's your right. If 20,000 gullible Leaf fans are going to pack into the stadium and pay exorbitant prices just to support their team because it's just a pilgrimage for them, then go for it. But in this circumstance, after all the money lost because of things that were really out of your control, if you got to make that money back, that's your right.
And Danny in the chat has it right. I mean, I think one of the motivations for last night was, they were caught showing, I think it was Ottawa, Philadelphia on the previous Saturday night. Or no, actually, wait. The previous Saturday was Christmas. So, but one of the Saturday night Hockey Night in Canada games, they had to scramble because a Toronto game had been postponed, and I think they ended up with Ottawa at Philadelphia as the national game. Well, you had Ottawa, Toronto, and that's 2 big markets. They needed a game, and I think that even if it was going to be in front of Carlton the Bear and a couple super fans, they were going to play that game. So that's why I think it got played. That's why I think Edmonton and Toronto will go off on Wednesday unless there's an outbreak. And, they're going to play as many games as they possibly can, and they're going to get an 82-game schedule in. That's just the reality.
Well, that's going to be a win, right? Because the Oilers never show up when confronted by the Maple Leafs. That was the case last month. The last game before the layoff.
In Edmonton, Toronto seems to dominate them. If you remember the McDavid undressing of Morgan Reilly and Edmonton's victories always seem to come in Toronto, and it will be the Zach Hyman return. So, yes, we'll see.
All right, let's get into our list of the top 5 Leaf surprises over the past year, mostly this season, but we'll go back into last year's dismal playoff defeat to the Habs.
The calendar year.
The calendar year. The top 5 Leaf surprises over the past year. Number 5, Kyle Dubas' ability to restock the shelves at the dollar store.
Yeah, and that's how when now people can be critical of the Mrazek signing but he's only played 3 games, so that's yet to be proved. Nick Ritchie, I know that they're a lot of people have been ripping on Nick Ritchie, and he was not in the lineup last night. But Sheldon Keefe was very clear to say that he has no problem with the way he's been playing lately. It's just numbers, and they wanted to get Mikheyev in the lineup. But Dubas, in terms of restocking the shelves, David Kampf as a third line center making $1.5 million on a 2-year deal. That looks like a steal right now. Not that he's going to score tons of goals, but he's a good checking center, a good penalty killer, a good face-off guy. Andre Kasha, who everybody knew was a talent, but the question was the health. And he had significant concussion issues over the last
right place, right time.
Yeah, and they got him on a 1-year look-see contract, and I think it was $1.25 million or 1.125, something like that. And he's played great, and he stayed healthy. And now he's a restricted free agent with arbitration eligibility. And if he scores 20 goals and he's going to cost, then maybe just a 1-year thing. But all they're concerned about is this year. That was an excellent signing. And Michael Bunting, who has fit in well on that top line with Matthews and Marner at $850K for 2 years. And he wanted to come to Toronto. He's from the Toronto area, I think Scarborough. He wanted to come to Toronto. He wanted to prove himself. And, there are, if you do well in Toronto, which he is doing so far, you can turn that into a bigger deal down the line with Toronto or with somebody else. So that's the advantage that the Leafs have to take when they are spending $40 million on 4 players. They got 3 players for less than $1.5 million who are all contributing well.
It's incredible. A year prior, Kyle Dubas makes a splash with these big signings, bolstering the team for a run. And those players contributed. They were not the reason they were associated with, but they were not the reason the Leafs fell apart after being up 3-1 on Le Rat. And the dejection and the frustration that we felt carried on for so long that when Kyle Dubas made these dollar store moves, as you call them, and they would have been perceived at the time, there was no fanfare about any of those moves. They felt like anticlimactic. They felt like they were defeatist in a lot of ways. They went big, it didn't work. They lost some of those guys, Thornton, Bogosian, a few of the players are still hanging around. But yeah, and then obviously. What's his name from Columbus?
Oh, Nick Foligno.
Yeah, Nick Foligno, bringing him in. Yeah, again, but everything else after that felt like it was just an aside.
Well, the difference between what Dubas did last year and what he did this year, he did the same thing. He got players to come in on 1-year deals and take less. Bogosian and Thornton were league minimum deals. What he did though is this year, Bunting Kasha, Kampf, they're all in their mid-20s. You got Bogosian, who was a veteran guy and played well, so you can't complain about that. But Thornton, he had injury issues, and he was, he's a veteran guy, and he tried his best, but he's in his 40s, and his speed is limited, and his maybe his endurance is. I mean, basically, I think they didn't want to go down the road of getting 35-year-olds to come in and spot. They wanted to get younger guys who could really take on bigger minutes, take on bigger roles, and all three of them have. So I think it's been a big success for Kyle Dubas.
Number 4, losing to the Habs the way they did. I don't think we'll ever get over it, Mike.
No, okay. I think we'll get over it. Not when they win a round, but when they win a round against the Habs. Now the thing is that, like last night, and they were doing sort of a retrospective on 2021, like we're doing, and Kevin Bieksa brought up, as a something that was the positive was the Montreal Canadiens run. I mean, not taking into as a factor that your biggest media market thought that was disgusting. I'll give all the credit in the world to Montreal of doing what they needed to do to, get by the Leafs and get to the Stanley Cup final. I think that was the first Canadian team since the Canucks in 2011. But I think it was more a Toronto loss than a Montreal win. And
for sure,
a number of factors, which we've gone over ad nauseum, including the Tavares injury, including injuries and ineffectiveness of other players. I mean, remember last year, your second line was Alex Galchenyuk, who's not on the team, Alex Kerfoot, who is playing out of position now because he's a left winger, and William Nylander, who was the Leafs' best player in the series. So, they and Nick Foligno was at 50%, and other players had just come back from injury. So all these factors, but they're up 3-1, and they still couldn't finish it. And that I always use the analogy in Toronto, and there are not a lot of people who are in their offices right now because a lot of the corporate offices are still working from home. But a lot of their compatriots, if you're Leaf fans and you're working in downtown Toronto, the people that you work with, a lot of them are Habs fans, and they will have bragging rights on that, and you will be sick of hearing that crap until your dying day. So that basically, until Leaf fans can stick it in their face that the Leafs beat the Habs, this one will sting.
Well, it would have been water cooler posturing back in the 90s. Now it is ripping on each other over Zoom meetings. So at least there's going to be distance between the two factions in order to avoid potential altercation, perhaps even physical altercation. So our top 5 Leaf surprises over the past year. Number 5, Dubas' ability to restock the shelves at the dollar store. Yes, the dollar store has a lot of great merchandise, and in the case of Kyle Dubas's recent shopping spree, some really effective quality players who are paying dividends for the Maple Leafs right now. Number 4, losing to the Habs the way they did. I don't think we'll ever get over it, and I know Habs fans will always remind us of it. Mike seems to think we'll exercise those demons at a certain point if we beat the Habs in the playoffs down the line. Mike, I think it's going to take a lot more than that, and I think there are several demons right now that need to be exercised from Leafs Nation, and that I think that'll continue on.
There are still people who hate Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah, for sure, Mike. I don't think we're gonna. You and I will live to see the day that this team is completely reset. Right. Number 3 in terms of Leaf surprises over the last year. Leafs Nation turning on Mitch Marner. He was not very good in that playoff series against the Habs, especially in games 5, 6, and 7 when the team needed him and number 34 most. But Mitch Marner, man, he has taken the brunt of the criticism. And I will tell you that stems from him being a pariah to begin with, going back to the Marner versus Nylander wars. And Do you think, Mike, he'll ever be able to regain the trust of Leaf Nation and become a beloved player?
Oh, I think okay. I think he's still a beloved player, and I think that they will forgive him if there's playoff success. Remember, against Boston the one year when he blocked a shot at the end of the one game, it was like, oh my God, Mitch Marner is the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the thing is, and people forget he was a top 5 scorer last year, top
Yep.
5 NHL. He was the first team NHL All-Star right winger. Not Mark Stone.
Mm-hmm.
It was Mitch Marner. But the fan base obviously has a focus on the playoffs because they haven't won in the playoffs in 17 years, and they expect their star players to perform. Now, you can't complain about what Austin Matthews, would have scored 50 goals if the season had not been interrupted 2 years ago. He scores over 40 goals in a shortened season. He was the Rocket Richard Trophy winner.
Hey, Mike, can you turn your audio down a bit? Is that possible? I just got a huge blast of audio there.
Yeah,
I don't know if anybody else got.
How's that?
Anybody in the chat? Are you guys getting that too? Anyway, let's just carry on.
Yeah. He won the Rocket Richard Trophy, but he didn't, he wasn't able to do much late in that series. But that, a lot of people connect that to Marner because Marner is the playmaker and in on that line, and Matthews is somebody that is sort of tied to Marner's ability to make those plays.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that this stems from the negotiation of Marner's contract and the fact that now, and me, I've said this started originally with the Nylander contract. It's tough to say that Nylander
Mm-hmm.
contract isn't good right now for the Leafs because he's playing so well.
Mm-hmm.
He's got 15 goals right now, but it was the precedent that it set. And what it was that they went to the 11th hour, and the Leafs, I think, caved and gave Nylander what he was looking for. They didn't cave on Matthews. They were going to give Matthews whatever he wanted. The case was, does Marner deserve what Nylander is making, or does Marner deserve what Matthews is getting? And the Leafs gave him pretty close to what Matthews is making and John Tavares is making. And I think that rate,
statistically, he's at that level. And before he signed this contract, he had naysayers. He had people who believed that he was not even in the class of someone like William Nylander. But statistically, that didn't make any sense. So it's not as if we were all on board and then all of a sudden his contract was revealed and everyone said, what the F is this all about? This does not make any sense. He's paid not in accordance with his talent, but he must know somebody within the organization or have something on Kyle Dubas, right? But I mean, before we even got into his contract, there's a faction of fans out there, especially on social media, who were dragging this guy down and saying that he's a lot of pomp and circumstance more than someone who will bring deliverable goods night in and night out.
But it's one thing to have a debate on social media and within the fan base,
for sure,
of the quality of each player and who's better. But when both of them are on their entry level contracts and they're making $925,000, you can have that debate. When all of a sudden one is making $7 million, the other one is making almost $11 million, and you have a quantifiable reason in terms of whether their value is equal to what they're being paid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when when Marner is making $11 million, the fan base is saying you better perform. And
he finished top 5 in the regular season in scoring, and they were up 3-1. All he had to do was assist on a couple of game winners for number 34. And again, winning does alleviate some of the criticism. I mean, but then again, there are fans out there who in a lot of ways seem to be so deeply rooted in stats and analytics more than the outcome of the process, and that's winning or losing. They're very focused in on players, and that's fine. And that's okay. But
I think
one player doesn't a team make.
Right. I think the acrimony, and we saw it at the beginning of the year when the Leafs struggled. It was not just Marner, but it was the core four who were all struggling, and Leafs fans were ripping them and saying, something's got to be done. They got to blow this up, and then they turned things around. Well, I think the acrimony toward Marner will only be solved by success in the playoffs. Now that may not, that could happen this year. It's kind of tough, but we'll see.
Yep. But look, if the Leafs continue playing at this pace and we get some normalcy back with the season, and he scores at a $7 million a year clip, I mean, the criticism will be there. But if the Leafs are successful and they are winning, it's tempered, right? Because the Leafs are winning. When the team is losing, it's exacerbated by guys like Marner and others who the fan base feel aren't living up to their potential, certainly not living up to their contracts. This is the Combo, just a few more minutes to go. Mike and I are going through the list of the top 5 Leaf surprises over the last calendar year. We're surprised by Dubas' ability to sign low-key players who've been able to, really put their money where their mouths are and get the job done, at least so far this season. We're also surprised that the Leafs fell apart against the Habs the way they did. It's a bit of a head scratcher, the way Leafs fans in multitudes turned on Mitch Marner after that playoff series, and a lot of that acrimony, as Mike has described, continues on to this day. Number 2, in terms of Leaf surprises from the past year, the relative ease in which that Morgan Reilly extension got done.
Yeah, I suspected, I thought that they were going to get a contract extension done with Reilly, but I thought it was probably going to wait until the end of the regular season or the end of the season before free agency, like they tried to do with Zach Hyman, like see where the team is, see where the where the money lies, see where the changes need to be made, and then let's get Reilly signed on an extension. Reilly clearly wanted to be in Toronto for the rest of his career. I don't think he took less, because I think $7.5 million, $7.5 to $8 million was probably the range. But as we saw with Hyman, as we saw with some of the Leaf players in free agency, or when free agency beckons, you get overpaid, and he got paid. He got paid fair. He got paid. He is one of the, I'd say, and maybe Leaf fans will push back on this, I think he's one of the top 15 defensemen in the NHL.
Is being paid like he is
now he is, but
Mike, and I hate to keep cutting you off, and if they had let him get away, how do you replace him? You can't, right?
And that was the biggest factor. You look at what free agency is going to be in terms of defensemen next year, and next July, and other than John Klingberg and Rasmus Ristolainen and a couple others, there's not a defenseman who provides what Morgan Reilly provides. Now, he, like I said, I think one of his motivations was he was drafted by this team. He likes playing with this team. He's a Vancouver kid, but he loves Toronto. It's well known he's involved with Tessa Virtue, who's from Ontario, and her family's from Ontario, and they're a media darling couple. That's probably a little bit of a factor here. But
what is this, TMZ or media? What is going on here, Mike?
But I think he wants to be the guy who breaks all of Boreas Salming's and Tim Hortons records. I think he wants to win a cup in Toronto. Obviously, that's the main motivation. But I also think he wants to be a guy who's going to be, the guy who's the career leader. Yeah. I'm sure a lot of Leaf fans have a lot of respect. The more Leaf fans, the fans who have a problem with Mitch Marner for taking more have more respect for Morgan Reilly and have a better place in their heart for Morgan Reilly because he took a little bit less.
Mm-hmm. Well, the fan base likes to dig in on certain players and detach themselves from others. Morgan Reilly's one of those guys. I mean, he's not a pariah, right? I mean, he's not polarizing. But when push comes to shove, and when you do look at the numbers and you do look at the you take a look at the landscape, the Leafs certainly made the right decision in re-signing him. And I like the fact, Mike, that he has a sense of the moment. There's a sentimentality to the process here. He's considering history, he's considering geography, and this. If Morgan Reilly wants to go down as statistically the greatest Leafs defenseman of all time, and staying here is a big part of the process in doing so,
And
then good for him. And I think that's admirable. You know what I'm saying?
And if he wins a cup in the 8 years, then he's going to be up there with Salming and Horton and Red Horner and the other great defensemen.
Well, but again, though, and I'm glad, again, we're talking about social media. We're also talking about how Kyle Dubas likes to do things. If it were up to social media, the latest and greatest player would always be the guy, right? Well, there's always somebody better than, Morgan Reilly. Don't sign him because Rasmus Sandin or Timothy Liljegren can take his place. No, they can't. And you're not winning a Stanley Cup with one good defenseman that all the kids like and have posters up.
And how do you win?
You need a collective, and you need that veteran guy who's been through the trials and tribulations for 10 years, and who understands the market and who is capable, professional. There's nothing wrong with having him on the team at the same time as your young up and comers, because again, one player doesn't a team make. And finally, Mike, our top surprise for the Maple Leafs over the past year.
Mm-hmm.
Campbell's seamless transition to starting goaltender. Gotta say, I can't say it's been a revelation. It's been a surprise, and it's been a pleasant one at that.
Well, I mean, when they acquired Jack Campbell from Los Angeles, it was the reality was the Leafs, since Curtis McElhinney had not had a backup goaltender who could not, make fans bite their fingernails off. They needed a solid backup, and everybody thought that that's what Campbell was. He had been only started as sort of a part-time starter when Jonathan Quick had gotten hurt a few years ago. Mm-hmm. Him and I think it was Cal Peterson shared the duties. He had just signed an extension with LA. He had a couple years left on his contract at less than $2 million. And the Leafs had to pay a significant amount to get him and Kyle Clifford from the Kings. Everything changed when Freddie Anderson got hurt, and we saw Freddie Anderson was not able to play up to a level that this team needed at 50% or whatever was going on with his knee. He could not do it, so they had to go to Campbell. And I looked it up, Norm. I couldn't believe the statistics. Okay. In the calendar year, January 1st, 21 to right now, Jack Campbell had the best goals against in the NHL, next to Jeremy Swayman, who only played half the games. Mm-hmm. Two goals against, 2.00 goals against, a .931 save percentage, and his record was 33-8-4. That's incredible. And for those who say, well, what about the playoffs? He played well in the playoffs. The losses in the playoffs were not on Jack Campbell. They were on the players in front of him. So now the big question going forward, and we'll talk about this when we do our our review of 2022, is whether Kyle Dubas is going to have the room to be able to re-sign him and what the contract is going to be. But right now, Jack Campbell this year with Mrazek hurt took on the starter's role, took on the bulk of the work, and has not faltered, has not gotten injured, and has played as one of the goaltenders in the NHL.
And you do know among starters, any goaltender who's played 20 plus games, he's got the top goals against and the top save percentage. And he's number two in wins behind Freddie Anderson.
Right.
Amazing.
Well,
good for Freddie. Good. The thing is, it's good for Freddie, right? His energy fizzled out with the Maple Leafs. He just lost it, and so what? We move on to the next guy.
I will say the same thing that every Freddie critic has said over the last 4 years, and I've been a defender of Freddie Anderson. Let's wait to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but I think the reasons for Freddie Anderson faltering in Toronto is because Mike Babcock had played him way too much, and he had no gas left in the tank when it came to playing against Boston. But Jack Campbell, what I think you're going to see, especially with this schedule going forward, right now the Leafs have played, I think, 30 games, 30, 31. Okay, so you're going to have 50 games left. Not that you're going to see a split, but I think you're definitely going to see Mrazek get 20 of those 50 games. He's going to play a bunch. He's going to have.
So what if Jack Campbell is in the Vezina like legitimately? Because right now, if the season stopped, he's probably the Vezina winner. I mean, he's faced the most shots. His goals against is the best. His save percentage is the best. Never mind wins. I mean, those metrics, the percentage metrics, those are the ones that really, really count. Do they weigh that out? This is an opportunity not only for a guy to emerge at this point of his career, become the number one in a major market, but he can win a big trophy. However, you got to think long term. You got to think of his health. Again, though, if you bring Mrazek in for more games, that might kind of water down some of his stats a little bit.
Well, I mean, I think his stats will get watered down if he's forced to play too much, and I don't think he will do that.
That's fair.
The whole reason for bringing in Mrazek for this year was to be a 1B to Campbell and to lighten the load. But when you get to the playoffs, Campbell's going to be the guy. I also think that Campbell, to re-sign him, Mrazek is probably going to have to go because you're paying Mrazek almost $4 million. I don't think they'll be able to afford paying Campbell $5 million or something like that, and Mrazek 3.8. So we'll see. That those are summer problems. Right now, it's the here and the now of him being and playing like one of the best goaltenders in the NHL. And when they traded for him from Los Angeles, they were just looking for a quality backup, so they hit the jackpot.
It just feels like none of this, though, Mike, was the plan. And I don't think the plan was to have as many games as that have been postponed. The plan at this point wasn't to have Jack Campbell facing as much rubber as he has and have as many wins. And I don't think they anticipated that he would statistically be the best goaltender in the league. The plan wasn't for Mitch Marner to be injured for over a month, and I don't even know if the Leafs thought they would be a top 5 team in the NHL. None of this was the plan, but here we are, and the chips are falling where they may. Last word to you.
Yeah, in this season, success will be based on your ability to adapt, and the plan. The plan is just a plan, but what was the old expression about fighting Mike Tyson? You've got a plan until he hits you in the jaw.
Yeah.
So, and this season is going to be a series of body blows. Somebody gets COVID, somebody this happens, injuries, you have to be able to adapt. And so far, I have to say that the Maple Leafs this season have been able to adapt and have done it pretty well, and we'll see going forward what they will do.
OG's Converse, thanks for joining us for this chat. What are your Leafs surprises over the past year? Ours, Dubas's signings, number 5, losing to the Habs, number 4. The way Leafs Nation is turned on Mitch Marner, number 3. The ease of the Morgan Reilly contract extension, number 2, and the way that Jack Campbell has become the number 1. Our top surprise over the past year when it comes to the Maple Brothers. Let us know what you think below this post on YouTube. Before I go, a couple of videos I'd like you guys to hit up. If you haven't already, we have a ton of content that needs some loving. Our post from 2 weeks ago, Not Again, is the thumbnail. you can click on that and watch that. Just get caught up on a lot of the conversations that Mike and I have had over the past month, and then jump on this one full steam. And the intent for us too, Mike, is to do 1 to 2 shows a week. But who knows how things will progress with the season, if there are more pauses, or if things will start to pick up steam. We'll just have to adapt the same way the Leafs are adapting. No contest, as well as who needs them. All sorts of content within the portfolio that we'd love for you guys to click on and enjoy. If you want to subscribe to the podcast, click the bell icon for notifications to let you know what Mike and I have planned, because we do have a lot planned. We're just going to have to see how things take shape with the schedule. Mr. Augello, Happy New Year. All the best in Western New York, and I hope that you stay safe. And I'm looking forward to getting back with you over the next week and a bit, and we'll talk more Leafs hockey. For Mike, I'm Norm. We're out.